This week's big review is really a big update. It's Ethno World 6 from Best Service. Now, the background to this library is that it's been updated and improved for about 16 years, so this version of it has been a long time in the making. It's been developed by composer Marcel Barsotti, and you can see a lot of love has gone into this collection. In fact, if you have a look at the documentation online, you can see exactly who's played what, and also the individual singers that have been culled from all around the world. So Ethno World 6 consists of two separate libraries. There are instruments and there's a voice collection too. And this number 6 update brings a 13GB collection of new sounds, so you've got 33GB in total with 800 patches. Just to run over some of the new stuff, you've got an Alpine collection, gamelan, some new keyboard wind instruments. Now the whole lot runs in Contact Player and is also now NKS compatible, so you've got those coloured key switches with your Contact keyboards too. I don't have time to go over the full list of instruments and voices in this review, but there's a really comprehensive PDF on the Best Service website, so do check that out. Let's start with the instruments. These are broadly categorised into themes and regions. You've got some playable instruments, some loops and licks, and some patches are a combination of both using key switches at the bottom of the keyboard, and many of these have different articulations. There are multis there, but I wouldn't get too excited about them as there's only 9 of them, and they basically just load a bank of instruments into Contact but assign them to different MIDI channels. So I didn't find this way of working to particularly suit me, although it does allow you to load up a lot of different instruments in one go. The voices are categorised into different areas of the world, and it's quite easy to click through the directories and find what you're after. There's a few little niggles here in terms of where I would have put things, but basically it's all there and it's pretty easy to find. So what did I like about this library? Well, I'd say that 90% of the sounds and voices are great. The drums sound wide, they're fat, some of them are really epic too. The loops as well are very authentic. Now, some of the instruments don't sound quite as good as other dedicated solo libraries, for example the ney flute and erhu. I've heard better versions of those, but they do a good job in Ethno World 6 nonetheless. The information pages for each of the instruments and vocals are very useful and interesting, and I did love the micro tuning. It's especially important to get the tuning right with some of these Eastern or Indian instruments, and there's micro tuning presets on board which are culled from all around the world, so these are very authentic. I particularly love playing with the construction sets. Even though there's only just 3 categories, you can create a full band effect in seconds just by hitting a few keys, adding drums and rhythmic harmonies and melodies together. I'll demonstrate some of that now. The waveform display is new to Ethno World 6 and is great for clearly showing the phrases and what to expect for them. It's especially useful for the vocal phrases so that you can link one to the next because you can see exactly where those vocal phrases finish. Speaking of the vocals, I did love the pads and instrument accompaniment sections at the bottom of the keyboard so that you could audition the sounds in context. Check out this reggae one for the Jamaican voices. Also, being able to tune the different phrases is super easy. It's nice to have the same interface for all of the instruments and voices. It's so easy to learn, and even though some parts of the interface are irrelevant for some of the instruments, that doesn't really matter because it's all in the same place. It's really easy to get to grips with. So there's a few things that I think could be improved upon, but they're really small points. Some of the voices sound a bit synthy, especially the solos, although some are surprisingly convincing using just the scripted legato. Also, some selections of the voices are a little bit stingy, I thought. The Gregorian chants, for example, they've only got 13 phrases and there's no playable patch there. Having said that, some of the instruments and voices have more selections and articulations than I think I would ever need. For example, the human whistling, which obviously is something most people can do themselves, has licks and a playable patch and 7 articulations, which is crazy. I did run into a legato issue with a few of the instruments. The playable instruments have multiple articulations, so that's great, but it's best to have legato mode on for the sustained articulations, and this gives a nice smooth transition, as most composers will know. Unfortunately, when it's on, most of these short articulations suffer a bit from playback problems when you play very quickly because the legato is still engaged and there's no key switch for turning the legato on and off. And this is especially apparent with instruments like the folk violin playing in staccato or pizzicato. It would have been better if these articulations had legato turned off by default, as the legato on and off seems to affect the whole instrument patch, not just one articulation. So in conclusion, for a library that's this comprehensive, there are very few duds in the patches. The interface is clear and easy, and the options for customization far more wide-ranging than might first be apparent when you load up the instrument. You could spend a lot of money picking up solo versions of these instruments here and not get anything like the breadth and functionality that Ethno World 6 offers. Some samples might be showing their age, but considering all of the new and reprogrammed content, I think for €450 you'll find a lot to love. It's a recommendation from me. Thank you so much for watching. That's just a small taste of the Samplecast, a weekly podcast and YouTube show for sample library geeks and plugin enthusiasts. You can find out more information at thesamplecast.com. Don't forget to subscribe.